So Group 8, I hope you were ready to go right now, and we're expecting another few minutes, so you're up.
Okay.
Hi, we are Group 8. I'm Kyungso Choi, and
I'm Manasui Tel.
our topic is about AI to discover the impact that certain countries had on art. So for the table of contents, first we're gonna talk about what's AI and how AI can be used with art. And for the second one, we're gonna talk about the positive and negative impact of AI on art. And for the third, we're gonna talk about definition of algorithm, especially for the unsupervised one that you used. And for the last, we're gonna talk about the next step of AI being used on art district.
So for the definition of AI stands for artificial intelligence. It is essentially an algorithm that makes predictions based on data and information that it has already been given. It makes these decisions by recognizing patterns from the data that it has been given. So what can we learn about art using AI? I'm going to talk a little bit about our topic and the context. So we're doing art. Art is popular because of its context. What I mean is the reason why a very simple, quote, quote, simple painting might have been really popular is because maybe the art movement before it was hyper realistic. And so this artist made something super simple, breaking like the norms, and then that is why that piece of art was very famous and it got a lot of popularity. This is what happened at the end of World War II. A bunch of European artists had just seen this gruesome war break out in their country, so when they came to America, they wanted to simplify things down and not talk about humans or like hyper-realistic things because of all the awfulness that they had seen. So that is when the abstract expressionism movement was at its high. So how does this relate to AI? We want to see if we can find similar trends in art for different countries. So for America, abstract expressionism was at a high. Can we see any other trends that cause certain art to be really popular? Another thing is, what trends can we see in the data that will impact future art? Like AI can be used to look through data and maybe predict future art trends. And then our last topic about AI and art is, does the diversity of the US, the melting pot that we have, affect the art that is made here?
So my partner talked about how it can be worked with art. Now I want to talk about the importance of using AI for art. So first, it can easily analyze the big data of art history, which human cannot do. We can do it, but it's gonna take a long time. And for the second, it can easily calculate the median value of each year and then figure out the trend of art throughout the decades before. And for the third, it can see the prediction of future trend on art. It already had the history of trend art, and now it can show us the future of art trend based on the median values before and the country names. And for the last, the most important part, it can show the whole art to us. Like the history, the present, and the future of art, we cannot exist on all of the timeline, but through the AI, it shows the value and data, and we can easily see the history and the present and the future at the same time.
Okay, now to talk about the positive and negative impacts of AI and art. So a positive is that because it's like these AI programs that make art, because it is getting popular, everyone can like use these algorithms. Art is more accessible to everyone. People who cannot physically draw what they have envisioned in their head can actually maybe do it now through this machine learning algorithm. AI and art can also help us find trends. So we can look at the data and it could tell us, oh, this art trend is going to happen again. This movement is going to see a reoccurrence. art can also be made at a faster rate. So this is specifically, well, in this situation, I was talking about animation specifically. In the background of many frames of animation, there are clouds and trees and water that could take a lot of time to draw. And so animators can actually use AI to draw those things in the background so that they don't have to do it. And this makes their whole maybe movie making process easier. Some negative impacts of AI on art is that AI is sometimes winning awards in competitions where traditional artists have to also compete in. This was recently in Chicago, where this painting on the screen, or art on the screen, won an award and beat out many traditional artists. Traditional art could also die out. Now that tools to make AI are public, could everyone just start making their own art instead of, waiting for new art by traditional artists to come out? The last negative impact is that AI art uses a bunch of copyright protected work when learning and making predictions. So how, is the credit being given to the original artist, or is the AI just able to make whatever it wants using the data that was copywritten and profit off of it potentially? Now we're going to get into our technical project. So for the first thing we had to do was find data. This was done so that we can make our own predictions about the patterns that we saw. The data set that we used was from MoMA, or the Museum of Modern Art. It had 130,000 artworks in their database, but I had to clean it up because there were a bunch of dates and nationalities missing. Those were the two columns that we used. A bunch of those were missing. A bunch of it was in different formats, like some had month and year, some only had year. So I had to clean that all up, and we got just over 100,000 artworks to work with. Next, here is our code that we used. We used Matplotlib and the Pandas library to help us in this process. So at the top here, we made a dictionary for each country that held the amount of artwork from that country in that specific time section. And then we plotted it onto a graph. So the final result is this plot that shows the number of artworks based on the nationality of every artist every 25 years since 1800. We chose to only display the top 9 countries with the highest total number of art for easier understanding, and that's in the legend. So the graph itself has all the countries, but the legend has the top 9. From this graph, we are told that the US had a peak in art in the 1950s to 1980s. This could verify that many American artists were producing more abstract art after World War II, but we would need to do more digging in order to find out if this is definite. Just because this one analysis shows that our claim was right doesn't mean that we can just assume that it's the only reason why the graph shows what it shows.
Now we want to talk about the definition of algorithm we used. So this is how the algorithm looks like. It has unsupervised version and supervised version, and under unsupervised learning it has k-means clustering, random forest, support vector machine, and q-learning. So what is the AI? So algorithm is a process of getting inputs and printing outputs that follow the rule or a safe setting by computer. Under there, they have unsupervised and supervised, as I told before, and we use the unsupervised learning. So I will not focus on that. Unsupervised learning is a part of machine learning algorithm. It analyzes data and cluster unlabeled data sets, which is different than supervised one, because supervised one require human to put labeled data set. And unsupervised one, it's more special, and it was useful for us because it finds new patterns or data groups without humans setting them, because in our case, our data set had bunch of data in there, and we need to know which one was the maximum and which one was the minimum. But if we use the maximum parenthesis method, we can know which one is high and which one is low, but it's hard to set the graph limit. So unsupervised one was helpful for us. And under unsupervised learning, we use K-means clustering, which is a part of unsupervised learning. So it produces the clusters from the dataset, calculate the mean value, and shows the clusters close to the mean value. So in our case, as I told before, we had a bunch of data set, and we wanted to know which country provided more artwork at the decade of year. So K-mean clustering helped us calculate it quickly.
Okay, and what's next? We can now see the trends based on their nationality, but to really prove the impact each country had on art, we would need to see the types of art that were made as well. This can be done with K-means clustering, like we talked about. This algorithm can group the styles of art created, such as cubism, abstract expressionism, minimalism, those different styles, and it can group them. Once knowing the styles of art, we can indefinitely tell if Europeans came over after the war to become abstract artists. Here are our citations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome job. Any last comments or questions for what was our last group?
I just want to really quick. Your presentation was really aesthetically pleasing, and I think the idea that you have brought up this idea, this topic, brings up wonderful discussions of AI, using AI, discussions of ethics, discussions of maybe social impact. The idea that you can use AI to be able to say, have an hypothesis and check it, and then really encourage debate. I think the AI really makes much more engaging opportunities in classroom settings, especially art, because art's art. Very different from machine learning AI, but it has really great usage, and it's good to see that we have two topics for AI. Okay.